we are starting topics now, because it's been 3 hours. And I should have been doing them the entire time, but I was busy watching a terrible, terrible movie. So, anyway, let's watch a political ad real quick. Okay? Okay.
I have never met people who are more hardscrabble, even in a place that requires you to work like 2 or 3 different jobs. We have watched this state become essentially unlivable for working class people, and it makes me deeply angry. My name is Graham Platner, and I'm running for U.S. Senate in Maine to defeat Susan Collins. A decade of military service going overseas, farming oysters to feed my community, diving to lend a hand to other fishermen, trying to start a family. But everywhere I've gone, it seems like the fabric of what holds us together is being ripped apart by billionaires and corrupt politicians, profiting off of destroying our environment, driving our families into poverty, and crushing the middle class. I did 4 infantry tours in the Marine.
So, like, I like the advertisement so far. I do not like the random flashes. I do not think they are necessary.
Corps in the Army. I'm not afraid to name an enemy, and the enemy is the oligarchy. It's the billionaires who pay for it, and the politicians who sell us out. And yeah, that means politicians like Susan Collins. I'm not fooled by this fake charade of Collins' deliberations and moderation. The difference between Susan Collins and Ted Cruz is at least Ted Cruz is honest about selling us out and not giving a damn. People know that the system is screwing them. They know it in their bones. Nobody I know around here can afford a house. Healthcare is a disaster. Hospitals are closing. We have watched all of that get ripped away from us, and everyone's just trying to keep it all together. Why can't we have universal healthcare like every other first world country? Why can't we take care of our veterans when they come home? Why are we funding endless wars and bombing children? Why are CEOs more powerful than unions? We fought 3 different wars since the last time we raised the minimum wage. I'm not pretending to have all the answers, but I know that I'm asking the right questions. When I tell people around here that I'm running for Senate, sometimes the initial reaction is, what the f***? But when I tell them why I'm doing it, because I truly do believe that we can build a system that is going to represent working people, the #1 response has been, well, thank God somebody's going to do it. You're supposed to fight for the things you love. This is our home, and I will fight tirelessly for it, for you. It's Mainers first, in Maine, always.
Okay, so that's Graham Platner, Democrat running for Senate, but there's a lot of awkward controversy that is surrounding him that we need to go into. Lenari says, the more I see about the flashing is a weird as hell choice. It is definitely weird, but let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on here. So, why is there an advertisement down there that's a fucking video? I swear to God, my ADHD brain is not built for this. Anyway, not that I have ADHD. I have not been diagnosed. You fucking weirdos. A progressive U.S. Senate candidate in Maine who has already apologized for earlier misogynistic and racially insensitive remarks says that he did not realize that a tattoo on his chest resembled a Nazi SS emblem. He is again under scrutiny, this time for anti-LGBTQ comments. So, right now, we seem to have a dude who, forward, has a lot of very, very progressive messaging, but has a past of being, well, kind of quite the bigot, but let's see how things go. In an interview on Wednesday with The Advocate, Graham Platner, a 41-year-old Maine and Army veteran running in Maine's Democratic primary, seeking to become the nominee to challenge Senator Susan Collins, confirmed that he authored a series of Reddit comments that included homophobic slurs and anti-LGBTQ jokes, and sexually explicit stories denigrating gay men. I mean, he does look like kind of your standard barroom homophobe. Old Gus says, how could you not realize, did you skip 80 years of war movies and get all your history textbooks from Japan? So the existence of comments posted under the handle P Hustle between 2016 and 2021 has not previously been reported. The Advocate obtained the posts independently this week. The revelations come on the same day Platner is scheduled to hold a town hall in Ogunquit? I think it's Ogunquit, a seaside resort known as one of New England's most prominent LGBTQ destinations, featuring a thriving gay community and pride celebrations that draw visitors from across the region. But now here's the cool thing. Here's the cool thing that I do see here. He does say, hey, I have no reason to deny that those posts are mine. I made a lot of comments over the years, and I talked a lot of shit on the internet. I have no reason to doubt that at some point, I used language that I would not be using today. It's indefensible. So I like that. I actually like that a lot. I like that as a quote because I identify a lot with that quote. Now, outside of cracking the odd edgy joke because I happen to be around really trusted friends, which is a thing that I don't think we should be policing, by the way. Y'all are really weird when you hear that somebody said an edgy joke with like 3 or 4 trusted friends, thinking that that's the same thing as saying it out on Facebook or some shit. But outside of that, there's a lot of language that I simply would not use out in the real world today. There's language I would not use out at my card shop, language I would not use that would be on Facebook, that would be on Twitter, that would be on Blue Sky. There's language I would not use on this channel because it is stuff that can hurt a lot of people. And when somebody recognizes that they did the same thing, how can I, as a person with the same kind of history, because I know in 2016 I was saying edgy dumb shit. I was smart enough not to say some of that stuff on my channel when I started in 2017, but I know the types of things I was saying. I know the kind of person that I was. I'm happy to see somebody else go through growth and become a better version of themselves. I'm super happy about that. As somebody who went through my own journey, I'm glad to see somebody else go through that fucking journey and say, hey, that shit I said, indefensible. I'm not going to try to defend that. Why would I try to defend things that I would actively argue against today? Instead of defending it, I'm going to point out that those are things that I used to do. This is true. So the unearthed posts show a pattern of homophobic language and rhetoric that mocked or demeaned LGBTQ people. In some cases, Platner appeared to use slurs casually in discussions unrelated to sexuality. In others, he explicitly framed gay people as the punchline. In June 2016, in June 2016, he wrote in a thread about life on military guard duty, saying, "No, seriously, flog that fucker as often as possible. Write gay poetry about how gay your current job is. Congratulations, you've made it through 1 shift. Now do it all again in 12 hours. Welcome to the world of standing post, where sanity is a sliding scale." I don't actually see too much wrong with that particular post. I feel like I might be missing some context, but I feel like that's shit that I would say now. In March 2018, he recounted in explicit detail what he described as a gay-off between Marines and British sailors in Bahrain. Said, pull into Bahrain in 2007 on an MEU. A Royal Navy submarine happens to be in port at the same time. Before we even realize what's going on, the other weird bastard just leans down and licks the damn thing from the bottom of the ball sack all the way up to the top of the dick, stands up, looks dead at us, and yells, "Beat that." I proudly withdrew our team on the grounds that one cannot play gay chicken if one is actually gay. That's not even that bad. Like, okay, so when you and your friends are comfortable in your sexualities and you know that you're not attracted to one another, and so you're okay hugging and like being close to one another when you want to, if that's a thing that you want to do. If you guys were to say, hey, let's play this fun game where we basically try to play chicken with one another, I don't see a problem with that. I wouldn't do it because it's just not the entertainment that I'm into. But when somebody's actually gay and they're actually getting like a sexual pleasure out of it, or even an emotional pleasure, somebody's going to come into the comment section and be like, "You forgot the ace people." No, I didn't. Stop. But if somebody's actually gay and they're willing to do those things more often, gay or bi or pan or what have you, if they're willing to do those things basically at all without having too many problems, then it's not really the same kind of game anymore. Like, the point of the game is to go as far as you are comfortable and stop beforehand. But that's not what would be going on there. So I don't see the problem. Yeah, it's not gay, it's homosexual. In July 2018, Platner joked in another thread saying, "I suppose some gay fellas still prefer holes as well. Party on top, bros." A month later, he used a homophobic slur when arguing with another user, said, "Bet you not a single downvoter is a real combat vet. Feel free to back it up with facts." Okay, so this part's homophobic. Absolutely. Absolutely. Using that slur is definitely homophobic. The only time it's not is when you're talking about a really diehard right-winger and you call them a flag-et. That's very different. In December 2019, Platner mocked military officers, writing that officers are gay, Army or Navy. I really don't give a fuck about your frat. Okay? And that one I don't see much of a problem with. By March 2020, he was still using the word gay as a punchline, So to where you're talking about British cigarettes, no, I don't see a reason to call those that at all. I'm sorry, I don't. I've actively had that argument with a friend who is British, and I still believe he should not have been using that word because that word also means slur for gay people, regardless. Lenari says, immature for sure. Yeah. In June 2021, Planter posted about military pranks, writing, I like how our gay antics make him so uncomfortable he hates us. I'm doubling down on gay chicken next time in honor of this Air Force pussy. Maybe I just grew up in a military family, but Lenari says, I thought people stopped using gay for stupid in the early aughts. So yes, they did, but I have met people who say such enlightened things as racism is okay so long as somebody laughs. I have seen people who have that kind of idea of what humor is also use gay to describe everything that they do not like. Lenari says this just seems on par for the course for military guys. Yeah, this is nothing. I don't think people understand that you get shot at in the military. And so a lot of the humor from the military and the people who are more willing to enter the military tend to be able to handle that kind of humor a lot more often. Because for some of them, hey, this may be the last day they have on Earth. They never know. If they're getting shipped out tomorrow or they're on TDY, anything can happen. You're not guaranteed the next day all the time. I understand every person in the military is not always on fucking active duty getting shot at, but you develop a kind of humor that spites the world around you, and I don't see a problem with that. Oh no, somebody's willing to say something when they're in the military, and they might be in, my cousin went to Afghanistan, for instance. What kind of humor can I expect from somebody who had machine guns shot at him? It's going to be somebody who doesn't clutch their pearls anywhere near as often, generally speaking. Audible says, hell, this is workplace humor. This is actual locker room talk. How dare he do that for a Klondike bar? Yeah, how dare? How dare you gargle another man's balls for a Klondike bar? Planter then told the Advocate that he no longer uses the slurs or dismissive language that appeared frequently in the posts. Again, I did see at least one example in there of something that I found problematic. These were words that I used for a long time in ways that I did not take seriously because of personal relationships I've developed over the years. I don't use them now, and I find them to be quite offensive. I stopped using that kind of language a while ago, and today I find that stuff abhorrent, and I am sorry that I ever used it. He attributed his change in perspective to friendships with LGBTQ people, both gay and trans, that deepened after he returned as a Marine. When I lived in Washington, D.C., I had a number of very close gay friends with whom he often attended Showtunes nights at JR's, a popular gay bar in DuPont Circle. It was only later when I moved back to Maine that I became friends with a number of trans people, and that really opened my eyes. Said even though I thought I was open-minded, there were elements of their existence that I had been entirely unaware of. That was when I began to really take far more seriously the damaging nature of language, the damaging nature of even discussing whether people exist or not. He said that realization led him to speak publicly in defense of LGBTQ students. Earlier this year, he testified at a local school board meeting in defense of a policy that was protecting LGBTQ students. He says, for me, at this point in my life, you either stand for what you stand for or you don't. Okay, that's fucking respectable. Low-key, I find it hilarious how you call me audible. Double? Audible. Unless it's a double A, in which case that's more... that is too many sounds. There's too many words out of my mouth. I will never do that. The new revelations add to a cascade of controversies that have defined his campaign. In recent days, he admitted to having a tattoo resembling a Totenkopf, a skull and crossbones emblem. Okay,
Hey all, it's Graham here. As you've probably seen, there's a story that's broken about comments I made on Reddit in an earlier part of my life. As I read through them, I read things that I absolutely do not agree with. I read through and I see things that, words and statements that I abhor. I also see the trajectory of my life. When I got back from Afghanistan in 2011, I stayed in the Army for another year. I got out in 2012. Some of the worst comments I made, the things that I think are least defensible, that I wouldn't even try to defend, come from that time. I had spent the bulk of my 20s in the infantry, deploying overseas, fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. The infantry was a very male-dominated place. It's a very masculine world. When I was in, women weren't allowed in the infantry. It's changed now, and that's a good thing. But when I got out, I still had the crude humor, the dark feelings, the offensive language that really was a hallmark of the infantry when I was in it. I made comments that I'm not happy about, that I do not agree with, but they came from a time and place in my life. And as I watch, or as I read through the comments that were released, I can see myself changing. My language gets less crude, my thoughts and my feelings get a lot less kind of rough around the edges. I do get almost more disillusioned though, and it's important to know that this was a time in my life where I was struggling deeply. I got out of the Army in 2012. I had PTSD, I had depression, I had all of the things that come with serving in a war, in 2 wars, that I eventually began to not believe in at all. It left me feeling very unmoored, it left me feeling very disillusioned, very alienated and very isolated, and I think like a lot of people, I went on the internet to post stupid things and get in fights and find some form of community in some way, some outlet for my feelings, for my rage, for my isolation. It wasn't until I found actual community that all went away. And the reason that I stopped posting on Reddit around 2020 and 2021 is because that was the point in my life where I had found this. I had moved back to my hometown, I'd found community, I'd started a business, I'd met someone to fall in love with, I'd been able to really begin to feel connected again. And not only did it let me feel connected, it also gave me a lot of hope. I had spent years being entirely isolated and feeling very, very angry about the system that had made me go through that experience. Coming back to Maine, moving back to my hometown, reconnecting with the community that I'm from, building real friendships, building real networks, real relationships with people, that helped cut my disillusion. I went from thinking that people were bad to knowing that people are good. I went from thinking that there was no hope to having nothing but hope. A hope that is rooted in the fact that it was in my community here in Sullivan, Maine, that I got to come home and build a nice life. That all changed for me, but it took me a long time to get there, and it was a very long journey. And along that journey, I was in different places that I'm not in now. I had different feelings.
Man, this is a very, very long explanation, but I don't have a problem with it, actually.
I don't have now.
Mizu, thank you for
I had different thoughts and opinions that I certainly don't have now. But I am very proud of the person I am today. And it was that whole journey that got me here. And while I won't defend things I said in the past, I will just say that if it wasn't for that entire journey, I would not be who I am today, and I'm incredibly proud of who I am today. And so for those of you who have read these things and been offended, have read these things and seen someone that you don't recognize, I am deeply sorry. It's something that I see someone that I don't recognize either, not in who I am today.
Okay, so this is all good. If he's legitimately not the person who did those things, then that's wonderful. We do a lot of really weird backward shit on the left, I want to say right now. And some of the weird backward shit we do is saying that prisoners should not get punishment per se, but instead should be rehabilitated. This is some of the weird backward shit that I agree with. I agree that people who go to prison should be rehabilitated so that they do not reoffend. We, at the same time, on the left, have a really, really fucking stupid idea of how to go about discourse with one another, because we have this weird habit of dredging up stuff from somebody's past and throwing it at them like a goddamn cannonball. We, on the one hand, say with one side of our mouths that we should forgive and make sure that people can grow and become better people. And at the other end of things, we also do a bunch of rigorous fucking purity testing. And I'm gonna be perfectly honest, it pisses me off. I love being on the left because we are correct. We are right. We are right scientifically most of the time. We are right educationally most of the time. We are right morally most of the time. What I do not like is how we use that us being right morally most of the time as a holier-than-thou approach to smack down other people around us. That shit pisses me the fuck off, and it doesn't do any good. It actually just makes people angry. Now, I'm not going to say that disingenuous people don't use the phrase, I left the left because of the purity testing and shit. I'm not going to say there aren't disingenuous people who do that, but I am going to say that if every time you hear that phrase, you do not think that there's a legitimate story on the other end of it as your knee-jerk reaction, then maybe you need to take a moment to think about your own life and whether or not you yourself could pass your own goddamn standards if we were to take a look at your life. And if you think that your shit is entirely clean and you've never done anything to hurt anybody, you've never had to have a learning moment, then congratulations, you have the emotional capacity of a child. Go get some life experiences. That is not to say there are not people who have not lived pretty fantastic lives that didn't involve hurting people. I'm sure there are people who have managed it. But again, if you have not had the experience of hurting somebody, of creating altercations because of your own ideology, and you want to try to create a roadmap for somebody else, having never lived a life even minutely close to it, then kindly stop. Looking at everything else in here, it just seems to be talking about how he's become a better person, at least better than the person who was posting those things.
Always wanted to ask someone of another race. You responded, why don't black people tip? I work as a bartender, and it always amazes me how solid the stereotype is. Every now and again, a black patron will leave a 15 to 20% tip, but usually it is between 0 and 5%. There's got to be a reason behind it. What is it? End of quote. How did you feel rereading that post? And what's your response to people who hear that and think that is like textbook racism and it's offensive?
I mean, one, I was legitimately asking the question. I mean, that was the point of the thread, was to ask the question. Amusingly enough, I remember this time when I had first started bartending, and then I had a conversation with a friend of mine who was black, who was a bartender, who did a great job of walking me through structural injustice and the fact of feelings of lack of agency. There were a whole bunch of reasons, and after that, I was like, oh yeah, that makes absolutely perfect sense. It was certainly not meant as a malicious thing. I was asking the question because that was kind of the point of the thread, actually.
So you're saying that this is not something that you were shitposting about. This was not something that you felt, it wasn't meant to be a commentary. It was a question you were sincerely asking on a Reddit thread because you thought there might be some sort of like cultural explanation or something. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I can kind of see that a little bit. So like, I know that there's definitely a different culture around restaurants where I grew up. And I also know that there are aspects about being black that I did not understand until I had friends explain it to me. Like one of my friends, Darnell, had to actually explain to me, hey, I didn't know what the fuck sunscreen was until I was basically an adult. And I just sat there like, how could you not? How wouldn't you have burned? And then he just kind of like looked at me. Not in real life looked at me. This was a Facebook conversation. But the equivalent for that type of conversation of just looked at me. You know how when you can just like feel somebody through the screen, you know that they have an opinion? You've given them the ability to have an opinion. I've seen stuff like that. Maybe not to the same degree, because like there is a lot of connections between the black community and poverty that you could make either in jest or in truth. And talking about tipping culture, it either comes down to like stereotype 1, black people are thieves, stereotype 2, black people are poor. Like it can come down to one of those stereotypes, and that can be really fucking shitty. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I like there was I grew up in Maine. I had never bartended before. I was living in Washington, D.C. And I honestly, I reread a lot of the comments for obvious reasons. Many of them I'm like, oh God, that one I must say, like, I mean, I was legitimately curious. And it was not, certainly not meant in any malicious way. And I got an answer soon afterwards in reality from an actual person, but.
Got it. Okay. So another one that's gotten a lot of attention is there were posts from 2013 where it seemed like you were playing down the challenges faced by members of the military who were trying to report sexual assault allegations. The first post was, in today's current climate, when every whisper of a misplaced hand brings down a feature-length film, anyone who actually thinks the military is purposely covering up rape to save a career of some goddamn captain is clearly both an idiot and junior enough in rank or life experience to think it matters. And then there was another post where you suggested that the way to avoid getting sexually assaulted was not to get blacked out drunk. Again, what do you say to someone who hears those comments and feels like it's minimizing a very serious problem, if not suggesting that the victims are the ones to blame for sexual assault?
Yeah, they would be correct in that. I didn't know what I was talking about. I had, at this point, I had just gotten out of the infantry. It's important. Like, my time in the service was in the infantry. At that point, it was an all male branch. I had only recently separated, and my frame of reference was that world. And that was not a world in which, frankly, I had very little interaction with women in the service. Very soon after, actually, this time frame, when I started going to college, I became very close friends with a number of female vets at George Washington, and all of them had a story. And I very quickly changed my tune. I think you'll find even not that much later in my Reddit history me acknowledging that. That was a moment in time in which I had not yet been exposed to things, and I had a opinion, or I had thoughts that were colored by my experience in the service. But my experience in the service was frankly limited. That's when I reread those, I see me not knowing what the hell I'm talking about.
Yeah. And sort of beyond like the substantive concern with the comments you made, I think is a political one, right? Like, as you know better than anyone, Maine is a really important Senate race, and Democrats are worried that if you're the nominee, like Susan Collins or the many super PACs that support Republicans will spend $50 million, $100 million on negative ads featuring a bunch of these Reddit posts. There's ones where you call yourself a communist.
It's kind of funny because, like, you'll find right-wing ads that will attack left-wingers for stuff that only the right-wingers disagree with. When like, how many times have we seen the joke made for someone like Zoran Mamdani, where the very first thing somebody says is, you don't have to fucking sell me on him, I'm already voting. I see a lot of that shit when we get right-wing political ads against left-wingers. Now, granted, obviously, if their goal is to take enfranchised Republicans and make them less likely to vote for the person, then yeah, that shit's probably working.
There's ones where you call police officers bastards. There's one where you say that rural white Americans actually are racist and stupid. What do you say to that, and how do you combat that?
Yeah, those were definitely, that was me trying to get a rise out of people on the internet. Those are not reflective of those weren't even reflective of my opinions back then. I would say that it is a little rich hearing about this right now, ACAB, when basically, just last week there was a pro Susan Collins ad run with Janet Mills in it saying nice things about her. Like, it is and I also, quite frankly, think that as I go around the state of Maine and talk to people, which we've been doing, the past month has been me on the road going all over the place. As I interact with people directly, as I hold town halls, as I get myself out there more, people are going to recognize that this is not at all the person that they've come to know and come to interact with in reality. Look, they're going to call me a communist. They always call us communists. They're going to call us socialists. They're going to call us wacko lefties. They called Hillary Clinton a communist. In many ways, we're not getting away from it. I also think that a lot of that's kind of run.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. If the right-wingers are going to call us communists and socialists and all these other words that they think are bad no-no words, then we should lean into that shit harder. Like, okay, cool. Fine, you want to call me a socialist? Free healthcare. Fine, you want to call me a socialist? Free college. Fine, you want to call me a socialist? Fucking workers, own the means of production. Right now. Form a union. Build it up. Like, yeah, just fucking lean into that shit. They're going to call you it anyway. Who cares?
On its road. And the way that you combat it is the way that you combat, frankly, a lot of this negative nonsense online, is you just interact with people in reality. In a state like Maine, with 500 to 600,000 voters,
and we have a year before the election, we can do that. We can really go out and spend a lot of time interacting with people. And that's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah. So I was talking to a couple of people who oppose your candidacy, who are working for other organizations or candidates. And they said to me, like, look, these Reddit posts, some of them aren't from that long ago. There are more posts that are out there that we know about that have not been written about yet. And kind of the suggestion is, what else do we know about this guy? The argument is you're unvetted. It's too risky to nominate you. What would you say to Democrats who share?
We should stop fucking vetting at this point. Like, okay, so I recognize the want for safety, the want for safe political figures. The right got Donald Trump. The right got the fucking Chaos Child wild card that flipped their entire movement into a fucking cult. At a certain point, you just have to kind of look at that and go, maybe the rules aren't as set in stone as I thought. Fuck it. Fuck it. Why not? Who cares? Who cares? Yeah, dude's not vetted. Let's just get some actual progressives, some actual leftists. Fine. Whatever. They're gonna say communist, leftist, socialist, all of that shit anyway. So get some actual communists and socialists in. Fuck it. What's the point in not doing it at that point, right?
Share that anxiety.
There is nothing that I can remotely think of that is out there that is any worse or really any different than what has come out. I mean, I posted on the internet for a long time when I was in a point in my life where I was looking for a lot of, I would say, community, looking for an outlet. I had an immense amount of disillusionment, an immense amount of anger. I use the internet as a place to find an outlet for that, which I think is fairly normal. Mm-hmm. But there is, I mean, if that is their concern, then they can.
Marky says, let's not forego vetting entirely. So I understand the larger, broader purpose behind that statement for me is saying instead of like, okay, so in Georgia, I saw that the Democratic Party in my district threw away Brittany Tenenbaum. They threw her away as a Democratic candidate. They could have ran against Marjorie Taylor Greene. And the reasoning was that there were pictures of her in burlesque on the internet. So what? The president's first lady has her fucking nudes on the internet. Lauren Boebert is known as Blow Bear, and for good reason. Who the fuck cares anymore? Why does it matter?
Go find more stuff, but I mean, I've honestly racked my brain about what I've not lived I haven't lived a boring life, but I haven't lived a very complicated one. I've never been close to money and power. I've never had the opportunity to like screw people over in an awful way. I was in the service. I certainly struggled afterwards, but even then, I mean, my struggles were my own. They didn't impact other people. They just impacted my life negatively. And the time that I was active on the internet was the exact same time that I was active on the internet. And that is that part of my life. It's no surprise to me that I was no longer active after 2021, because that's frankly when my life kind of began to get good. For those who are worried about me not being vetted, there is just nothing that besides like stupid internet comments, besides, I mean, honestly, like I've never robbed anybody. I've never beaten anybody. The only violence I've ever used is, frankly, violence that the United States government asked me to go conduct. There is very little. And I certainly was never close to money and power, which I think is also things are pretty simple when you live a simple life.
Yeah, I really want to ask you about your time in the U.S. military, your thoughts on bigger picture things, but I did want to just sort of ask you about all the shitty stuff that's getting thrown your way, because I know it's been an intense week of sort of, it's clearly like some sort of opposition research switch was flipped, right? There's been a lot of incoming, and I've heard a couple more sort of strands of attacks. So for one, you made this video, it's about 5 minutes long. It's on Twitter and other platforms, explaining the Reddit posts and talking about how when you got out of the military, you had kind of like crude humor and crass language that was the hallmark of the infantry when you were in the Marine Corps.
Again,
the NRSC interpreted those comments as you blaming your fellow servicemen for the Reddit posts. So that was sort of one strain of, I guess, attack.
It's not blaming your fellow servicemen. It's that when you're in the military, there is a flippancy with which you will use language. Because the idea is that you can be more loose with your tongue. because you have to handle real life consequences that are far more massive than your feelings getting hurt. That is the idea in the military. And if you have ever talked with anybody in the military, they will echo exactly what I just said.
On the attacks. Second, I've heard that there's a whisper campaign questioning whether you should be getting disability benefits for your bad back or your bad knee, because you also released a campaign video where you're swinging a kettlebell. And then,
by the way, that's what the kettlebell is for.
the bad back.
I've done years and years of physical therapy, and maintaining a strong core is legitimately what keeps my herniated discs from putting me into crippling pain. It's amusing to me. It's not amusing. It's infuriating, actually, to have people question my disability rating, the reason that I'm doing well is because of the help I got. That's the point. That's the purpose of therapy. That's the purpose of support. To look at someone and say, oh my God, look, they're living a good life because after we provided them support and continue to give support for them to live that good life, they're living it, is absurd. What's the pitch here? We're supposed to strip benefits from disabled veterans? That we're supposed to look at people with multiple combat tours, with banged up bodies and struggles from trauma. We're supposed to look at that and say that you're not supposed to get help. This is something.
Yeah, again, that's. People are weird. So I have a friend who's disabled and literally will not get himself in front of a camera or anything in case some random fucking insurance agency happens to be doing the fucking spy shit that they do to determine whether or not they can take you off of benefits. It's insane the ways that people have to protect their lives when people think, you're not disabled enough. When people can't fucking walk. It's insane.
It actually deeply angers me. It took me a long time before I was okay with asking for help. Because coming out of the infantry when I did, and you can ask any infantryman that came out of the wars the time I did, this was not a thing that we did. There was a taboo around it. There was shame around it. There was this idea that if you did, you were going to no longer be able to get a job, that you'd be ostracized by society. And the fact that I got through all of that. And when I go to serve again, when I go to run for office in my state, my own party comes after me saying that I am not deserving of the life that I've been able to build with help from the VA because of my military service. That gets me pretty pissed.
Yeah.
Gets me pretty heated.
The suggestion seems to be you shouldn't get better, That's
right.
Right.
Or the idea is that by getting better, you're then just better and you're no longer in need of the things that got you better. That isn't how any of this works. It's not how physical therapy works. It's not how normal therapy works. It is all into for me to run and do this and put myself out here as essentially a very regular person. My wife and I do not live an extravagant life. We have not lived a life of power and wealth. We've lived a very simple one. And this to us feels like a way of giving back and doing something good for the state of Maine and for the world in some ways. And by doing that, I get attacked by Democrats about being a disabled veteran. That what does that even send as a message to other guys who might be, or men and women who are disabled veterans who might want to get involved? This is.
It's weird to me. So I'm from a military family. My grandpa was Navy. My cousin's Marine. My dad was Air Force. My step-grandpa, also Navy. Every single aspect of my life has been colored in some way by somebody who was from the military. So the ways that I see some people talk about our military members and their struggles and dismissing them and shit, it does kind of piss me off. It really does. Because when I hear that shit, I see my cousin. I see my dad. I see my grandpa. I see my family. I see people who have not only been people I respected, but people who have enriched my life being trodden upon because they made a decision that, quite frankly, more people are having to make in order to survive. In the United States, do you know how to guarantee you're going to get fucking college? You go in the military. Do you know how you're going to guarantee you'll get fucking healthcare? You go into the military. You want to know how you guarantee that you'll be able to afford a house? You go into the military. That is the reality of the United States. No ifs, ands, or buts. You're a trans person who wants HRT? Guess what your easiest option is gonna be for making your entire life ahead of you function? It's gonna be going into the military. Now, as a leftist who does not like what our fucking government does, I have a lot of criticisms about that. But those criticisms are not levied at the fucking individuals. Those criticisms are levied at the system that incentivized that. My criticism is always gonna be aimed, not at the individuals, but at the fucking system. What's that fun quote that we always seem to forget when we're doing the fun lefty Ouroboros thing of eating ourselves? Give grace to individuals, be merciless with systems. I can never remember the exact quote, but I promise you I can get the spirit of it. We forget that a lot for no fucking reason, for no reason whatsoever. And it agitates me. It really does. And then it's not just people shitting on military members. Because I'm okay with you shitting on military branches. The military branches shit on other military branches. I'm okay with that shit. That shit doesn't bother me. It's when there are aspects of military culture that shape how people are, and we seem to have this really, really neat idea of how toxic masculinity reinforces negative traits on the left, but we seem to not have a very good grasp of how those exact same traits get exacerbated by being in a situation that you have to be in to be able to afford healthcare or a decent house. We're really good at pointing out the problem, and we're really fucking bad at winning people over to our side on it, and we're really fucking bad at solutions. Bagozi says, my left shoulder seems to be permanently dislocated. My lower back is absolutely fucked. My right hand's permanently broken. My head is very sensitive to pressure, and both of my knees hurt every time the weather changes. The army did that to me. Yeah, and then we will forget that. I'm both left and right. Said you're rated at 90%. It's amazing to me that with all of that, you're rated at 90%. That feels like that should be rated at 100. That's percentage on the disability scale for people in the chat who might not know. A lot of people who go into the military, so I'm also going to give you a bit of advice. I did not go into the military, but if I did go into the military, here is how I would financially support my life afterward. Because this is the system that I have seen that works. You serve for at least 25 years so that you can get your half check from the military. You also make sure that you are paying into your retirement fund as you go, obviously. That's going to pay back off at 65, try to push it back 68. Then, when you get out of the military, if the military fucked you up in any way, you apply for disability through the VA. You will have to fight tooth and nail for it, absolutely, but you do that. And once you are on disability, you also work a civilian job that is identical in function, if you can manage it, to the role you performed in the military. And you start receiving a civilian paycheck. That is the path my dad took. It is the path that my grandpa took. It is the path I have seen work. It is not a perfect path, and it can be derailed because the VA system is fucked up beyond all repair. That said, this tangent is literally just for anybody who may be currently active military and watching and is thinking about when they're going to get out. One of the biggest struggles for a lot of people in the military is finding civilian work that will provide you with the same lifestyle that you had in the military. The adjustment period sucks, the pay will not be what it's supposed to be, and the benefits will be non-existent. So I'm throwing that advice out there because this is the advice that was given to me by my family members that has allowed them to survive. But we got on that tangent because of this guy.
Brutal. Like getting your life ripped apart and having people go after your military service and go after your struggles afterwards as some like political football, it doesn't feel good. And I don't think anybody's going to look at that and be like, oh, I wish that would happen to me. Yeah. And I mean, if the goal here is to keep disabled veterans from running for office, then they should keep it up. But that seems like a pretty ridiculous goal at a time where the Democratic Party seems to be hemorrhaging demographics of all kinds. You'd think you'd want it to make it more inclusive, not the opposite.
Yeah, I would argue too that, there's someone who's, I've never served in the military, I've worked in politics for a while now. I have noticed that I feel like veterans get held to a higher standard than almost anyone else when people are looking at their record, right? It's like, did John Kerry throw his medals or not? It's like, well, he served in Vietnam and got 2 Purple Hearts and,
they were his medals to throw.
Right. Yeah. Like Tim Walz, similar thing. It's like, well, he was in for 20 years. Let's pick apart his record anyway. Thank you for addressing that, though. And then, finally, like this one is probably equally as offensive. But, this other person I was talking to said, this person said you were being called a blue falcon on internet forums, which I'd never heard that term before. But I think the suggestion was maybe you were blaming your service or your PTSD for the Reddit comments rather than taking responsibility. And I just wondered what your thoughts were on that.
I mean, look, it's not blaming. It's literally saying, hey, there is a set of habits that were considered the norm in my previous environment. These set of habits are considered uncouth in a different environment. There is an adjustment period, and you should expect that.
That line of attack, because it's sort of similar.
Of course not. That's literally not what I said.
Yeah.
I do think explaining the fact that I struggled with alienation, isolation, and the effects of PTSD after my military service. And that's why I was on the internet, frankly, getting in fights with people and shitposting. I'm not trying to blame anything else, but I do think it warrants explanation. And that it was a dark time in my life, man. Like I'm just going to be straight up. I was not doing good for a couple of years there. And it took me a long time, even after I moved back to Maine, even after I started to settle in, it took me a long time to really begin feeling settled again. And like I said, it's no surprise to me that I stopped really using the internet around 2021, because that's when I'd settled in. I got back from Afghanistan. My last trip was in 2018.
As Marcy says, I will say I don't think that levying this complaint at all of the left is entirely reasonable. But I do think it is, though, because the right wing props up the military to a fetishistic degree, and the left wing goes fully in the opposite direction, and it's weird. Anyway, but let's see, this is like weird off-brand leftism that is purity testing and whatnot feels entirely center left or corporate left. But see, that's not off-brand leftism for the United States. That's the state of the left in the United States. Because what is the left in the United States is liberals. And liberals tend to be far more happy with capitalism than your average socialist or communist. It's okay to have the wall of text, but that's why I label it that way. That's why I aim it that way, because that's where I see those problems. See, also, yes, the behaviors are reinforced by the military. What people often want is for these things to get better, because the military doesn't have to be a bastard toxic masculinity. Right. Understandable, but we go about that in a weird way when we spend time not trying to fix that system from within and actively make it better, but instead attack the people who got shaped by that system. If there's a thing liberals are really good at doing, it's pointing out problems, diagnosing them, and then pointing fingers at them forever and wondering why nothing ever fucking changes. It's weird.
So I get back from Afghanistan summer 2018 for my last time over, fully disillusioned, fully convinced that the whole thing was utterly pointless. And that got me really, really cynical for a number of years. And it took about 1.5 years, 2 years for me to settle back into, frankly, society. And I'm lucky. I'm immensely lucky that I come from a small town, that I moved back to a small town, that I'm very connected with my neighbors, my community, and my family. I got to meet my wife. I mean, like, life got good.
Is that what pulled you out of that sort of place of despair?
It also, I mean, like, there was some time. I mean,
then Audible says it's part of the problem that breeds this passion of toxic masculinity. Yeah, we point at and attack and attack and attack, and then we wonder why you get a bunch of people who create their echo chamber where that doesn't happen to them. Axo says, I don't remember where I heard this, but I remember someone saying that the U.S. is a very good place for making soldiers, but it's really bad at unmaking them. Yeah.
I mean, there was a time there where I was really down on this whole project. I was really down on, like, because I saw everything as a complete waste. Like I got very nihilistic. I got very critical. And then you like settle in and you reconnect with human beings in the real world, not on the internet, but like in the actual world. And you build a community and you find yourself connected with folks. And
wow, it's so weird. Those are all things that I keep on saying people need to do. It's so weird to hear those words echoed by other people who are actually trying to gain power. Strange.
That entirely rebuilt my faith. It rebuilt my faith in America. It rebuilt my faith in our ability to be what we say we want to be. It rebuilt my faith in people. And like, I got that because I got to move back to the place that I was from, and because I got the support that I got from the VA to put me in, frankly, a much better place, both materially and mentally. And I got support and help. That's what got me through it. And that's what allowed me to reconnect. And that's what gives me, frankly, the immense amount of hope that I have to undertake this project. I'm not doing this from a place of like cynicism or a place of ego. I'm doing this because I honestly think we need to do something different. We need to try a different kind of politics. What we are doing right now is clearly not working.
And I think that's probably a good area to end that on. Like, I think we've got enough information to see a pretty good idea of this guy's trajectory. Very much a nihilistic, flippant military person with the language and habits you would expect from somebody who has that background, who slowly gets better over time as he gets out of his edgy, I need to have conflict for conflict's sake phase, and now is trying to run for office. Now, a cynical person could see him cleaning up his act as a political power grab, because a lot of people who get into politics, they do clean up their language, they do clean up their actions, they do clean up things on the surface because they know that that's what they need to do to run. I'm not opposed to being shown that I am wrong here, but from my perspective, he seems genuine. He seems genuine. And were I in Maine, I would be willing to throw support at him. I don't know, that's what I think, though. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitt, you know I'm not saying that last part, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.